Hi, it is Rebecca Ryan-King here, and I'm a speech pathologist who wants to show you some really quick ways that you can assess for facilitative context with your speech sound students. Now, just to catch you up on that term, facilitative context, if you're not quite familiar with it, basically, when we assess a child or when we start therapy, and let's say the child has difficulty with S or CH, you can just pick cards and just start with the cards that you have, and fingers crossed the child says a clear CH sound. Or you can assess and really look at these words, and you can probe to see whether some of the words encourage or facilitate a clear or a clearer sound. And this is usually because the vowel sounds or the consonant sounds before or after our sound, CH in this circumstance, can just get the articulators in that right position, and so it can just facilitate or support that sound. So it is very worthwhile to check and to probe, because 10 minutes of assessing a child can mean that you might be able to start therapy with success with a list of words the child can already say. So here are my tips for assessing for possible facilitative contexts. So I like to do some sorting activities with my students as I'm going through our sounds within words. And I like to look at sounds in initial position, medial position, and final position, as well as consonant clusters if the sound is within a cluster. So with S or for R or L, I will look at consonant clusters, also for something like K, because the thing is, you never know what might facilitate that clear sound. So we don't want to lose any of these opportunities. So I have a tray like this, and I'll go through the words. And for me, I know in my head that green is like a clear sound or a clearer production, because it might not be a, what I call like a 100% correct articulation, a clear sound, but it sounds a lot clearer, or it might just require a little bit of cueing or tweaking from my end, but I might like the sound that they're attempting to make. So if the child will say a word like face, and I'll listen to it. If it's like face, I'll put it in the red pile. If they say mess and it sounds clearer, I'll put it in the green pile. And so as the child is saying their sounds, I am sorting and I'm listening to those productions. I'm also going to give some feedback. This isn't a test. I want to know if the child can say something clearer. So I might say, do you think you can say castle, but have smiley lips? And if they can, I will put it in the green pile. And when we finish, and I have done these with my articulation cards, I am going to look at these and see if I can find any patterns. Like I might realize, wow, the child has much more piles in the green box in initial position. I wonder if I should start in initial position with that student. Or you might realize when you look through the red that all of those sounds contain low vowels or rounded vowels. So you might have this hypothesis that rounded vowels might exacerbate that S sound. I might not choose words to start therapy with rounded vowels, because I'd rather the child say their sound clearer and then we tackle them later. So sorting your cards is a fantastic idea. If you are going to sort, I want you to think about looking at, is there a position, initial, medial, or final position, that the child finds easier and clearer to say? And I want you to look at vowels. Now, we have a free vowel chart for Australian English and general North American English. I want you to think about high vowels versus low vowels, front vowels versus back vowels, diphthongs, all of that, and see if you can find a pattern. And you might start with a place of success. So it might be high front vowels in initial position, get a really clear S, and that is where you start therapy. Now, that's a quick, what I call like a DIY way. I'm going to show you something that is a little bit more structured for speech therapists. So at Adventures in Speech Pathology, we do publish facilitative context screeners. And what this does is it already looks at the possible context that might facilitate a clearer sound. So for example, I have a CH facilitative context packet here, and I know that for some students, rounded vowels in initial position where CH is first and then the rounded vowel precedes, like chew and chop. I know that that can facilitate and encourage a clear production for some students because it gets the lips round. I also know that final position might be easier for some students, so words like ouch. High front vowels can be very facilitative for those children with a lateral lisp. So basically, a screener like this, it lists possible facilitative contexts. Here we go. You can see them all here. And what you're going to do is you're going to say these words to the child and you are going to be providing cues to that child. So again, this is not a test. You want to talk about rounding the lips, pushing the tongue up, whatever cues you think the child needs to say these sounds clearly or to their best ability. I want you to say them and provide them to the child. You might want to hold up some little visual cues as well. So you might hold up something like this, and you might talk about the air or the lips or the teeth. And then because you're the speech pathologist, you are going to be using this form and you are going to be writing and documenting if you used any cues that helped the child say their sound clearly. And you can document here and go across all the possible facilitative contexts and see if there's a place that you can start in therapy. So this is helpful for those SLPs who want to know what those possible facilitative contexts are first, versus the other way was trying to discover them with the cards that you have. So you do have two choices. And let's say, for example, you discover, wow, that child, when we had CH in initial position and then it was followed by a rounded vowel, like all of those are really clear. This is where you would start in therapy. You would start your therapy finding these words and you would get high practice and the child will learn where to move their tongue and their lips because the vowel is supporting that CH production. And then hopefully within the next few therapy sessions, you might probe other contexts and positions and say, wow, the child is really getting used to, how to make the ch sound. We can add more words in, and then hopefully with therapy and as you progress more, the child isn't bound by these specific contexts. They can just do and say that sound clearly because they know, and we've started from a place of success. So if you want access to those screeners, in our comments, we are going to list all of our different facilitative contexts packets so that you can get a little bit more information and see if it's something that's useful for you. If not, just do the DIY way and categorize, download those free vowel charts and have fun.